This morning, after I got out of the day job, I did something out of the ordinary. I went to the movie theater and saw a movie. And I know people watching or listening to this are probably like, big deal, dude. Millions of people go to see movies all the time. It's an entire industry. You're right, but this was the first movie I'm pretty sure that I went to the theater to watch since when did Star Wars Episode 9 come out? I'm pretty sure that was the last time I was in a movie theater. Actually, you know what? I think I went to a Riff Track Live was the last time I was in the theater, but an actual movie was definitely Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which seems odd to some of you that have followed my podcast path throughout the years, because before COVID, I was doing a movie podcast for a little while called Flicks with Floyd, where I would go see a movie and then podcast about said movie. But I just sort of have gotten away from it. Why? I think it's, you're getting older and you don't really feel like going to the movie theater as much anymore, except for special occasions like this one. And the point of me saying the getting older part definitely proves that I now don't go during prime time when the theater's packed. I always go in the matinees when the theaters are 80, 90% empty. Matter of fact, quick side note, back when I was doing Flicks with Floyd, what movie was it that I went to see? I think it was, I can't remember the movie now, but I know I went just like today after the day job, and I was the only person in the theater to watch the movie. So I thought that was kind of cool. Had that entire theater all to myself. But anyways, not that sounds weird or anything, but today I went to see the much anticipated movie Disclosure Day. As you can imagine, it has a lot of things in common with the many of the things I talk about here on this podcast. So, of course, I was going to podcast about it. But I thought after I watched it, how I wanted to come on here and talk about the movie. Did I want to come on and just discuss what it was about, sort of give you a review? And I'm like, no, I kind of don't want to do that. Everybody is doing that. I'm not a movie critic. My Flicks with Floyd days are long since gone. Did I want to come on and talk about the quote historical accuracy of the movie? Kinda. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And I really resisted the urge to record with my phone as soon as I walked out of the theater because I really did love this movie. But we'll get on with it as this episode of Too Boldly Pod progresses because I have a lot to say about the movie Disclosure Day.
People have a right to know the truth. Oh my God.
You gotta jump!
They're coming.
Now, people that know Steven Spielberg know that he has long held this sort of fascination with UFOs and aliens. he's done a handful of movies. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., many other great sci-fi epics. And then he has done War of the Worlds. I forgot he did the another remake of War of the Worlds, and now he has done Disclosure Day. And within the UFO circles, the ufology circles, there has always been this sort of unverified theory that Steven Spielberg and Ronald Reagan had this discussion about aliens and UFOs when he held a private screening of E.T. in the White House for Ronald Reagan. That part is verified and true. The line that came out of it is not verified whatsoever. And allegedly, and I'm going to use the cursor allegedly, when they were watching E.T., Reagan leaned over to Spielberg and said, most people probably don't realize how accurate this film is. Why did he say that? Well, I've talked on this podcast before about Reagan had a UFO sighting when he was governor of California and was very interested in UFOs and aliens. So much so that after he had his sighting, he did a lot of research himself into the phenomenon. And he also made that famous quote at the UN that might have just been a parable, but he stated that how would the world react if they were faced with an alien threat from outside of this world? Like I said, it could have just been a parable about the world would come together as one if they were attacked from forces outside of this world, sort of making a comment about peace. Was he just saying it as a parable, or was he saying it as something that he knew as factual? That's where people within ufology have kind of ran with that quote for the past 40 years. But he was interested in it. But we know Spielberg has long had a fascination with aliens and UFOs. So it's not surprising that he releases a movie all about Disclosure, because Disclosure gets talked about a lot over the past few years. And as I stated before, I've really kind of gone back and forth about how I wanted to talk about the movie here on the podcast, whether I just wanted to talk about the plot and all of that, or if I wanted to break down some of the historical parts that are brought up in the movie. And I don't really want to break down the plot because I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not anyone that's even remotely qualified to talk about cinematography. So I can't do that. But I do have a little bit of knowledge about ufology. So I can talk a little bit about that. And I'm not saying I know everything about it, because a lot of it is extremely subjective. Some people might think one thing is completely different than somebody else. We've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast in the past 10 years. So let's just pinpoint a few areas of the movie that I wanted to talk about. I will say before we start, there isn't really any spoilers in this movie, but if you are somebody that is hypersensitive to spoilers, maybe bookmark this podcast until you watch the movie and then circle back. But like I said, there's really not any spoilers, so there's really nothing you have to worry about.
Footage. One of the weirdest details in Disclosure Day is the Richard Nixon footage Daniel finds while going through the alien files he stole from Wardex. At first, it just looks like another creepy government tape. Nixon walking someone through what appears to be an alien morgue. Daniel only describes the other man as a famous actor from the 1970s.
I thought that was kind of curious because this is one of those urban legend stories within ufology about how Nixon and the famous 70s actor, which, yeah, I guess he was still famous in the 1970s, but they're talking about Jackie Gleason. Whether they couldn't get Jackie Gleason's estate to allow him to use his name or not, I don't know. But the urban legend is that Nixon did take Jackie Gleason to see dead alien bodies because Jackie Gleason was so fascinated with UFOs and aliens. Never been verified, never been confirmed, but this is a very, very popular urban legend within ufology. Why they didn't use Jackie Gleason's name, I'm not sure, but anyways.
But if you know UFO conspiracy lore, that man is clearly meant to be Jackie Gleason, the star of The Honeymooners. And the creepy part is, this detail is based on a real UFO urban legend. According to the story, Gleason was obsessed with UFOs and was supposedly friends with Nixon through golf. His
Didn't I just say all that? I kid.
second wife, Beverly McKittrick, later claimed that Nixon secretly took Gleason to Homestead Air Force Base in Florida, where he showed him preserved alien bodies. But here's the important part. That story has never been proven. It comes from Beverly, not from Nixon, not from military records, and not even directly from Gleason in public. So in real life, it remains more legend than fact. But in Disclosure Day, the movie treats it like it really happened. And that makes the detail important, because later we learn presidents were eventually cut out of UFO secrets. Why? Because presidents leave office. They become private citizens, and private citizens can talk. So
that is one interesting point they made in the movie was, why aren't the presidents informed, like he just said in this clip? And the line was, because they become private citizens after 8 years. But, and that's one of the interesting things about this conversation about a government within a government holding a lot of this information, keeping it away from the supposed leader of a government. And that's been proven before, whether it be Clinton or Obama or even both Bushes for that matter, have stated that they were briefed about certain things about UFOs or UAPs, but they're not allowed to talk about it. So it was an interesting scene, but not really a shocking one to include in the movie.
one strange Nixon clip isn't just a fun Easter egg. It explains why the truth had to go deeper than the White House. Sister Maura's true purpose.
This part is interesting, and I'll let it play out before I talk any further.
Sister Maura, played by Elizabeth Marvel, is the abbess of the monastery of St. Clair of the Dawn. She doesn't know the exact technical details of the Wardex Corporation conspiracy or the specific mechanics of the device that Daniel stole. However, she has an incredibly deep, intuitive spiritual understanding of what is happening. When Daniel and Jane arrive at the convent seeking sanctuary, Sister Maura isn't shocked or panicked by the revelation of extraterrestrial life. She is a woman of deep, unwavering faith who views the universe as vastly larger than human understanding. To her, the existence of intelligent alien life doesn't threaten God's existence. She sees them simply as another part of God's infinite creation. While Jane fears that public proof of aliens will completely shatter people's faith and destroy religion, Sister Mora represents the opposite perspective. She acts as a comforting mentor.
That is a good point to make because they did cover the religious aspect of aliens being real and being here on Earth, because there's long been this theory that organized religions and people that have faith in God would have serious questions about their faith, when the reality of it is certain religions, specifically the biggest religion or one of the biggest religions on the planet, Catholicism, sort of embraces the idea of species or others living, other aliens, how's that, living on other planets, because they have observatories that the Vatican owns and operates. And they even, one of their fathers is an astronomer. So they don't shy away from the possibility of life living elsewhere in this universe. But it's good to bring that point up in the movie, because one of the big things that you hear a lot about, if aliens landed on the White House lawn, that there would be mass panic. And a lot of it is in reference to people with a deep, abiding faith in God and or the Bible, because a lot of people read it as God created us and us alone here on the earth. As you can probably imagine, if you haven't seen it, a lot of this movie has been dramatized for, dramatic effect. Good way to put it, Dan. Anyways, it's a movie. So, of course, there's going to be stuff that makes it appear to be more dramatic than it might actually be in real life. And I guess we'll never know how dramatic this disclosure would be unless it actually happens. And I'm not talking about the recently declassified files by the Trump administration, because that doesn't count. Nothing that was declassified has really been earth-shattering like it suggests in this movie. The point of this movie is somebody has all of this information and is going to release it to the world for everyone to see, to where there would be no question as to the idea of whether we are alone in this universe or not. But like you're about to hear, a lot of people aren't really understanding sort of the climax, the finality of this movie. I found a good clip that explains it pretty well.
It seems like a lot of people are misunderstanding the ending of Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day. So let's break this down. To quickly recap, the movie ends with a large alien being wheeled out for the world to see after Margaret and Daniel leak the files.
That is one issue, and I only had a couple of minor issues that I took with this entire movie. The alien we get to see at the very end was like this huge 9-foot alien. And the clips that we see throughout the entire movie all show your standard 3-foot tall gray aliens, your standard alien that everyone envisions. But yet when we see this alien at the very end, it's huge. A minor issue. I understand why they did it. I just wondered why it wasn't just your standard gray alien.
Alien then gives a message to Daniel, who whispers it to Margaret, after which Margaret stands in front of the camera and speaks the word listen before the movie cuts to black. Now, I've seen a lot of people upset or confused by this because they feel like we as the audience are missing out on the rest of the message that was communicated to Margaret, but I don't think that was the point. Because from early on in the movie, it was made clear that the main theme wasn't actually about alien contact, but it was about empathy and human connection. Earlier,
They pounded that message throughout this entire movie that not only should humanity have empathy, but it was clear that aliens were empaths as well. And we'll talk about it more as he continues.
Hugo told Daniel how highly the aliens value empathy. And throughout the movie, Margaret's power, if you will, was literally empathy at its highest level. Being able to not just see into people's lives, but to understand and feel the weight of their experiences and communicate it in a way that made them feel heard and loved. And we saw in multiple instances that her power was used to de-escalate negative situations. And don't miss this. It's important to remember that the events of this movie are taking place as World War III is about to begin, a time when empathy and understanding is needed more than ever,
Which is a point that a lot of the videos that I have watched of people ripping on the movie are missing. That the idea of empathy is really pounded into you, not only with the main character, but as he just said, the whole backdrop of this entire movie is the entire world is about to enter into World War III. So it's the perfect time for some planet-wide empathy. But people that just want to get on and rip on movies aren't seeing it. So maybe they just don't understand the message conveyed in the movie like he's spelling out to you. Or maybe they're just doing it for views. I don't know.
Isn't that far off from mirroring the state of our own world today. And so I don't think the ending is incomplete, but instead it's a message, a directive. In order to be empathetic towards others, in order to build true human connection with those that are different from us, we must first learn to listen. I'm curious to hear, did you like the way Disclosure Day ended? Let me know.
Actually, I really love how it ended because, like he said there, the alien says something in its language to the male character, and the gift that the alien, you learn throughout the movie that the two main characters were both abducted by aliens in their youth and were given gifts that would eventually be unlocked. The female lead's gift was she knew things about people, almost like she could read their minds, and a host of other powers as well. Specifically, when she's holding the alien rod that they are running from the evil empire from. I'm using that as a joke, but she can make them all seem to kind of disappear, but it's really not making them disappear. It's making the people around that are looking for them seem like they have disappeared. So she kind of has this psychic power. And the male lead, his ability was he could understand the alien language, which ends up being sort of this mathematical language. Or as a lot of scientists have said, if we ever meet aliens from another world, our conversation that we would have in common would be a mathematical language like binary. So people got confused when she spoke the alien language, like you saw in the trailer clip, or maybe you've seen it in other clips. She doesn't understand what she is saying, and people are missing that point because there's scenes in this movie where she's speaking Russian and all different languages throughout the world. She has no idea what she's saying. She doesn't understand. The male lead is the one who can understand all the languages, specifically the alien, the binary language. So the alien leans over and whispers something to him, and he tells it to her. And the movie ends with her just standing in front of the camera saying, listen, the ultimate sign of empathy. How can we all get along? It's just simple. We just need to listen and understand. That's why it faded to black. Now, as you can imagine, there are a lot of people that love the movie, and I'll give my final review, my Springer-esque. I'm not going to rip my glasses off like Springer. Here's my final thought. Okay, I'm kidding. I can't see without these things, so give me a minute. I'm going to stop trying to be funny. Anyways, I'll give my Springer-esque final thought after this final clip. But as you can imagine, most people they're very negative about the movie for various reasons. It's right down to like, this movie is the worst. And I don't understand that, because this movie, even if you don't believe any of the alien stuff and you think it's just a movie, this movie is far and away the worst or terrible as I have read people talking about it. Is it long? Yeah, I suppose if you're really not into this type of movie, it could be boring to you being 2.5 hours long, but it's not terrible. There's a little bit of something for every, even people that aren't interested in this type of thing could be entertained by it. But you may be well aware that there's people that have to make videos and comments about it being the worst, or maybe just scenes of it being the worst.
What is the worst movie scene we've seen so far in 2026? Mine's pretty easy. It comes from Disclosure Day. Listen, I like this movie more than a lot of people, but there was one scene I thought was just ridiculous. It's when Emily Blunt and Josh O'Connor are in this trailer and they're captured, and then all of a sudden Emily Blunt can just turn into whoever you love most, and that's how they escape. Like, these guys realize that is not actually them, but they all just kind of get out of the way. It's like,
didn't we just cover this in the last segment about the whole empathy thing? She can read their minds and make them sort of feel empathetic towards something that makes them the saddest. So in their minds, when people really get down to your root cause of your issues and can get out what your issues are, bring out a tragic moment within your life, even though you're talking to them, mentally you're picturing the person or the situation that makes you so bad, so sad, so angry. So that's what she's doing. She's reading their minds, and she's really, and then she showed it throughout the whole movie, just in passing at the very beginning, and then it sort of developed as the movie went. So why this person thinks this is the stupidest scene of the entire year isn't understanding the idea behind it. She's starting to exude or utilize or enforce her powers that she has been granted by the aliens to escape from said situation.
in The Walking Dead, when they put the guts all over them and the zombies just kind of get out of the way, it was like that. That was probably the worst escape I've ever seen in my life.
No, it wasn't. How many Fast and Furious movies have there been? Didn't they like jump a a Fiero or something or take it into space. That scene was more stupid than that. Anyways,
Was the power of the magic stick? Was it just whatever they needed to happen in the movie at the time? Even some of the other stuff I could maybe understand. And maybe I let it kind of just slide. But that scene, that's how they got out of that. Everybody just kind of let them go, except for that one guy who conveniently didn't want to stop them until
he was held back from stopping them by his boss. And they built that up the entire movie that the quote enforcer was the only person that they made it clear if you studied it enough or paid attention enough that he doesn't have any emotional connection to anything except doing his job. That's why she couldn't reach into his mind and pull out something empathetic for him, because his job is his life. Being a bad guy, being the enforcer, that was his job. Why he didn't try to stop them at first, his boss held him back.
they kind of already left. And then he wanted to go there? Why couldn't she just make the car invisible when they were driving as well? Again,
Because she wasn't holding the rod when they were escaping in the car. See, he's skipping that part where she made the things invisible when she was holding the alien rod in her hand. That's the only way she could do that. So he's putting two things together. You see in this clip that he's showing her holding the rod, and that's when she was able to make everybody seem invisible. Didn't actually turn invisible. Just everybody that was looking for them couldn't see them because she used the power of that rod to enter their minds even more and make them think they weren't there. That's why in the scene, they could still see the rod. They just couldn't see the people. But he's skipping over that part.
I let a lot of stuff slide in that movie. That scene where she just turns into those people, that was awful.
No, it wasn't. You don't understand the empath, the empathy of the message of the movie. But I get it. You're just trying to make content. Almost said contact. We'll get to contact in a second. You're just trying to make content. Even though you said you liked the movie more than most, and then you ripped apart sort of the seminal scene in the movie. So ultimately, what did I think of Disclosure Day? I'm not going to rip my glasses off again. That was too much work putting them back on. I don't know how to rate it, but it was a fantastic movie. I think it pounded a lot of nails into truth, a lot of suspicion. Whether it is true or not, we probably will never know unless there is ultimate disclosure. Was it dramatized to the nth degree? Absolutely. It was a big budget Hollywood movie. Of course it's going to be. So it's probably not going to have that X-Files deep state feel like the movie portrayed in real life. Or maybe it will. I don't know. I just can't imagine. Okay, put it this way. The part that's dramatized the most in the movie was the fact that this corporation seemed to have people 5 minutes away from every little small town in America. That was highly dramatized for sake of the movie. Do I think it would be that dramatic if it really happened? If somebody, and we actually saw somebody sort of hack and steal. Gary McKinnon, ring a bell? But even his story isn't quite that dramatic as this movie. But Gary McKinnon's a story for another day. I'm not going to spoil this one for that. Ultimately, I guess if I had to give it like a 1 out of 4 stars, I would definitely give it a 3.8. And because I say that only because of my 2 minor issues with the movie, where I talked about the large alien at the end, which is ancillary. It doesn't really mean anything. That was just for movie purposes. The other one was they did some callbacks during this movie to actual UFO events. Roswell, you might expect them talking about that. And they talked about Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. And they included in that bit that they took an alien out of Kecksburg. There's never been any reports that there was an alien whatsoever recovered or seen in Kecksburg. Honestly, we don't even know if it was a UFO or an alien spacecraft. We just know something crashed in Kecksburg, and the military came in very quickly and retrieved it and sort of silenced the entire town. But there's never been any stories about an alien being retrieved in Kecksburg. So again, that's just a minor trivial thing that I took umbrage with. As far as the movie goes, I loved it. It had a great sort of espionage X-Files feel to it. I think a lot of it is probably closer to spot on than closer to being completely fabricated. Was it dramatized? Absolutely. I'm sure it was. A lot of science fiction involved in it. But I think it hits closer to home more than it doesn't. So if you're into ufology, go see it. Check it out. If you're into Disclosure, go see it. Check it out. There are 2 different camps in Disclosure. One camp's not going to like it because they're more of the mental side of Disclosure than most people are. But as far as me, I love the movie. Thought it, like I said earlier, it hit a lot of nails right on the head. So yes, 4.8 out of, what did I say? 4 out of 5? 4.8 out of 5? It's a great movie. Go see it. See, that's why I can't be a critic. I can't even nail down my own rating system. I think it was an awesome movie. But hey, maybe you think differently. If you do, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you thought of Disclosure Day. If you enjoyed this podcast, do me a favor and click like and subscribe to my channel wherever it is you're watching or listening to it. That way you're notified every time I publish a new episode. Generally, I do it every week. They're in full on YouTube and wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And they're released throughout the week in chapter form on Reels and TikTok. So I really would appreciate you clicking that like button and the subscribe or the follow button. It'd be awesome. As for a closer on this, I don't really have a closer, so I'm going to do a terrible impression of the alien language from the movie. Did you even understand that? Because I didn't.